Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your for the non-members. Thank you so much for your patience. We are about to start. I know most of you, many of you, know the person I'm going to be introducing, and I am really excited to be able to introduce her. Maggie Vandenberg, also known as FogCity Midge online, has worked for over a decade in Hollywood, and then she came out as a conservative. That's right. And she's been creating content, opening people's minds with conservative viewpoints since 2018. That's actually when I first saw her. I saw a video titled Actors Cold Read Facts About Gun Control. And she had done that video with Austin Fletcher, Fleckus Talks. So then I sought her out on social media. I've been following her, and the rest is history. She is very brave woman, and what better speaker to have on engaging boldly and confidently in political discourse than Maggie. So with that, Maggie, I'm about to, there you go. Maggie will about to share her video with us.
All
And you are
right, am I
unmuted.
live?
There, you are
You
live.
can see me and hear me. Amazing, incredible. This is really different for me. I have to say, I am new to Zoom meetings. I don't think I had ever done a Zoom meeting until a couple weeks ago, and now this is our life. And this is the first time I've done such a engagement, at least in a studio like this. So I'm grateful to my friend who helped me set this up, and I'm glad it's working.
Perfect, perfect. Maggie, uh, what would you like to share about, could you share your story with us and how you went from making the decision of, hey, you know, I could just continue doing what I'm doing, and why you decided to start speaking out?
Yeah. So I guess I always leaned conservative, and I spent, as you mentioned, about 10 years in Hollywood. And I learned very quickly that if you did not want to get blacklisted or have people turn against you, you had to bite your tongue. And that's what I did for, the better part of 8 years that I was living in Los Angeles, and mostly working as an actress and sometimes filmmaker on set. But yeah, I worked in a number of TV commercials and independent films. I was in a Hollywood movie, but one thing was consistent is that I did not meet a lot of conservatives. And I learned that if, no matter what was being said, I had to just bite my tongue and nod along. And I knew a lot about politics. I was really interested in politics. I went to USC and studied, at first I was studying international relations and poli-sci. But when I decided to get into Hollywood, I learned that you had to drop that. And it killed me on the inside because I felt like I was never really being my true self, my most authentic self. And I always felt that there was this big part of me that was in the closet. And then fast forward a few years, I was married and living in San Francisco. And the election was approaching. And everyone around me was telling me that there was no way President Trump or, Donald Trump was going to beat Hillary Clinton. And I was seeing the news, and I had this gut feeling like, I know they're lying to me. I know they're not telling me the full story. I know they're misrepresenting what's really going on. And I started looking into things for myself. I started a social media account at that time, no followers, no nothing, just, so that I could follow along and see what other people were posting. And after the election, it was such a shock even to me, because I did not think that he would get elected, and he did. And many people that knew that I voted for him turned against me. And I just had this moment where I thought, I have this skill set as an actor and as a filmmaker, and why did I spend all this time hiding who I was to try to please other people or try to get ahead in my career? Nothing that I've done in my life, or nothing that I could do, even if I were to achieve the greatest levels of fame in Hollywood, would be remotely significant at all in the grand scheme of things if we lose our country to socialism. So I felt that it was up to myself, other people like me, to start to speak up and to be more bold in what I believe, and to show my support for the president and conservative values. And being in San Francisco, I mean, it was really easy to make a lot of great content because all I had to do was walk outside every day and realize that this is what failed leftist progressive policies do to a beautiful city. And they've completely ruined the lifestyle there for so many people. They've ruined, you know, so many people's lives by enabling drug addiction and homelessness. And all of these things can be traced back to terrible policies at the top at City Hall. And yeah, it just really led me to have like a very strong awakening and emboldened me to take on these ideas and to share them with other people, because I grew up in the East Bay, and I remember going to the city my entire life. It was a beautiful place. It was always a liberal place, but now it's not a liberal place. They do not tolerate ideas that they do not agree with. If you try to wear a MAGA hat in San Francisco, people will either not talk to you or they will harass you and sometimes even assault you. So this is not a tolerant city anymore. This is not a liberal city. It's a leftist city, and frankly, it's becoming more and more totalitarian by the day, especially in these very strange times that we're living in. We can all see it very clearly. So yeah, that's sort of my backstory and who I am, and I hope to share a couple videos with everyone. And I'm really excited to speak on this topic of confidently engaging in political conversations.
There you go. There you go. Yes. One of the things I noticed, one last question before I let you take it off. By the way, for everyone who is listening, you can type your questions. I've already received some of your questions ahead of time. I have them saved. And if you have any questions throughout this, I will be looking at the chat box, and we'll have a Q&A portion at the end. So one of the things that I've noticed is when I first started following you, I went, to your very first post, and I noticed how true to your roots you remain. The first political posts that you started making were around, I forget the young lady who had been killed by an illegal alien, and there was no justice for her. And even now, when I look at the posts that you make, the work that you've done on, Build the Wall, and the continuation of how you're speaking out for, safety for people, it's all related to that. You're one of those people who you really are following your values, and what you say you believe, you actually believe. You're not just trying to hop onto a bandwagon of what might be countercultural or cool. So yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you
Thank you.
take it off. I'm going to minimize my screen, and so that way you can everyone can see you fully.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to come on, and I'll just chime in on that. That's really cool that you that you remember those original posts way back when, because yeah, originally I wasn't really using my social media to speak out, but I remember the night Kate Steinle was killed. So Kate Steinle is just about my age, grew up very close to where I grew up in the East Bay, and was in San Francisco, less than a mile from my house at the time. And she was walking along a pier, a beautiful day, with her father and her family, and she was murdered, by an illegal immigrant, in supposedly a freak accident where he was, out of his mind and shooting a gun and accidentally killed her. What we don't really know what the full truth of that situation was, but when the man who committed that crime, who had already been deported 5 times, was basically, found not guilty for the murder charge, it just struck me as being so wrong. And so I made signs, and I went out to the place, where it happened, and I put my signs up, and a lot of other people had done the same thing. And that was one of the first posts I ever did, of kind of like coming out and just sort of speaking out and putting my opinions out there. So yeah, I'm very passionate about illegal immigration and the negative impact it has on our communities, as well as just securing our country and protecting our borders. It's funny to me when I do getting into this topic, when you debate people, it's really good to use their own, their favorite politicians against them. And it's funny when I remind people that even as recent as 2015, Bernie Sanders actually supported, not having open borders. And he admitted that you cannot have open borders and a welfare state, because we can't afford to support the world's poor just to come here. And yeah, he knew that and admitted that. But oh, how things have changed on the left. And now they are just completely done a 180 on border security. And I actually made a video about that where I played clips of Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer, and Barack Obama all supporting the need for a border wall or fence. And yeah, none of them on the left support that anymore. So it's very strange times that we're living in, where, we really see what these people are all about. But to get into our topic tonight, let me first start by saying that I am not an expert debater by any means. If you want to become an expert debater, I would advise you watch a lot of Ben Shapiro videos. But I don't think that most people are interested or have any need in their life for getting up and giving a live public debate. Maybe if you're running for office here, you have to go up against a candidate. But that's not really the point of what this event is going to be. So this is not to learn public debating, and there's certainly probably better places you could learn that. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is how to engage in political conversations and speak your mind and sort of fight back. And I'm not talking about fighting back against, people that are just having like a civilized conversation. I'm talking about actually defending yourself and how to defend your ideas online, because I know what it looks like and feels like to be attacked regularly. And yeah, it happens, and I'm sure it's happened to everybody here on listening in. So hopefully I can give you all a few tools that you might find helpful, and hopefully we can all use these gifts to embolden us going forward into this next election, and how to defend our positions on many things. So that being said, I think that I need to address, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with these ideas of like a liberal versus leftist. Most liberals that I do have liberal friends, and most liberals are people that are very open to having a dialogue. Whereas when debating leftists specifically, these are people that are married to their ideology, that don't want to have a conversation typically, or let you win, or have any kind of like civilized, rational debate. And these are typically the far left progressives that we're seeing more and more within the Democrat Party. And these are typically the people that are deranged and will try to argue and debate you on social media. So that's more of who I'm looking at today. So just keep in mind when I say leftists, that's sort of what I'm referring to. So I want you all to know that the left knows that this is a war, and to them, you are the enemy. In America, I don't think of my fellow Americans as my enemy, but that is really what we are up against right now. We are in the middle of an ideological war for our values and for the future of this country. And they identify you as the enemy, and they will do whatever it takes to win. And often their favorite techniques are cruelty and intimidation. And this is how they operate. They usually typically won't debate ideas. They will just bully you into silence and submission. And I think that's largely how we've gotten to this place where we're at, where conservatives don't have a voice in the public sphere as much as we do now more with Trump, but really nobody saw Trump coming. Nobody thought he was going to get elected, in part because we all have been so silenced and reserved. And when we see people going crazy on social media, typically we don't jump in and voice our opinions. So this is going to kind of help give some tools to fight back against that. So I get attacked online daily by hateful leftists. I'll just say it. There is a crazy reporter at the New York Times who now has it out for me and likes to take what I say out of context. So I wouldn't be surprised if she's watching this and screen recording it and going to chop up what I say and try to make it like I'm saying something else. But that's what these people do. They try to, bully, intimidate, and take your words out of context to paint you as a bad person. And that's what they try to do. So one of their favorite techniques is to win by calling you names and to shut you down and shut you up. So, that's one of the first things you kind of have to look out for. But first I'm going to start by playing a video. Let me get back to my notes here. So, okay, I made a video this was just a video that kind of just happened. I was leaving the Women's March last January, and I ran into a friend of mine, and we both had our MAGA hats with us, and we said, what would happen if we popped these on and just walked through the crowd of women as they were leaving the Women's March? And what happened was completely insane. My friend David Harris and myself are standing there. And I don't know if you all are familiar with David Harris, but he is a very tall, handsome, big buff black man. And, he's a good friend of mine. And we're standing there together. And this woman who, you know, shaved head, just angry feminist comes up and starts screaming at us and calling us racist, bigots, everything, every name under the book, because we were wearing our MAGA hats. And David Harris politely engages this woman and tries to have a conversation with her. And what happens is just, it's so telling of the state of the left and sort of this progressive Trump derangement syndrome mindset. So I'm going to play that video for you, and hopefully you guys can all hear it. Please let me know if it's not going to play. But let's try this. Again, this is my first time, bear with me. And I am going to play this for you, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. So here we go. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So here we go. I'm actually going to just fast forward to like the really good part anyways. So sorry that. Well, actually, let's get a little bit of this. So can you see, you guys can see this?
Yes.
All
we
right,
can see
let's
that.
do it. Just planting the seeds. So maybe we got through to her a little bit. Whew. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So now I'm going to stop sharing that and we're back here. So yeah, that first video I think really exemplifies just who we are talking about when we're talking about these people that we're arguing with a lot online, especially the more aggressive people that will come attack you in the comment section. They're usually often have a very bad case of Trump derangement syndrome, like the woman that we just saw. So yeah, that to me just epitomizes the logic of the left, right? To trust your emotions over logic, you know, to trust fear and not logic. It was such, it's a mindset that is so backwards, but this is actually what these people believe. And I think that the reason that this video went viral, I mean, it had over 20 million views from the last time I counted, and it's probably even a lot more than that. A friend of mine told me the other day that he saw that one page alone who reposted it got 16 million views. That video has been retweeted by the president. It's a very popular video because it's just so crazy to hear someone actually say out loud that feelings are more important than logic to them. And I mean, this isn't some just fringe idea either. You see even politicians like AOC say things like, you know, we don't have to be factually correct when we're morally correct, and things and ideas like this. So these are the people that we're actually dealing with. They might seem scary because they're deranged, but when you take a moment, you realize that they are not so scary because their ideas, they don't have the ideas to back up what it is that they're feeling. So they might be screaming the loudest, but these are not individuals that you need to actually fear, and you can take them on head on, even if they are screaming at you. So how do we do this? How do you make your argument? The first thing is you got to be prepared. Emotionally, you got to put on your shield because they will call you names. And I want to encourage you not to be scared. And you need to be prepared to dismiss these attacks. And this is step one of how you argue and debate with people, because it can be really offensive that first time someone will call you a name that you have never been called before. You know, whether it's, I'm sure that every single person on here has probably been called on their social media a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, Islamophobe, xenophobe, every kind of phobe on the planet. They even make up terms to call you. That is how bad it has gotten. And so what I would recommend is that when you get attacked with these terms, don't try to defend yourself against them, because inevitably it never sounds good, and it makes you seem weak in your argument, because you shouldn't have to even defend something that's so completely ridiculous. So if somebody calls you a bigot, you shouldn't sit there and try to tell them why you're not a bigot, or why you're not a whatever, why you're not a racist. It's like, how do you even explain that, especially to someone who probably does not know you that well, or if at all. So I would say step one is you don't have to argue when they try to just throw names at you, because that's not even an argument. So step one, don't engage on that front, just move on. That being said, I do have a side note. If you really, really want to, you can engage them on that note, but I would just say the only thing to ever ask is to not defend yourself, but to ask them to prove it or say how or why. And I get messages like this all the time. People will come into my DMs on Instagram and call me something ridiculous and say, you know, you hate immigrants or you are a racist because you support building a wall. And I'll say, okay, how? Why? Prove it. Like, how am I racist? How am I? And inevitably, they will not have anything. And if you push them, they'll usually try to change the subject first and say, well, you know, we have to, you know, let everybody in from all over the world. And you can just say like, well, no, you said something about me and I would like you to explain that to me. And inevitably they can't. So oftentimes if you push them, even just ask them the same question a couple times, how am I racist? How am I racist? How am I racist? They will usually block you, which is pretty funny to me. It happens to me at least weekly. So that's always fairly entertaining. So if you want to kind of push them on that, that is one way, but usually the conversation kind of ends at that. So usually though, I say just move on and talk about the ideas if you actually want to talk ideas with a person. So next I would say, so back to their original point. If you want to be engaged with them, you have to be prepared in a few ways and kind of know what your original point is. So if they want to say something and you want to engage with them in a conversation, let me see if they bring up something. Okay, so I would say if you are having a moment where you are talking with them and yeah, you get past the point where they're calling you names and oh, are we still here? Oh, we got somebody else on, I guess. But anyway, so if they bring up something and they're trying, and you let's say for example, they say, well, Donald Trump's a racist, and you say, how? Most of the time, like I said, these people are going to go away because they can't back it up because they probably don't have facts. But let's say they come up with something that you've never heard of, because you can't possibly know everything about everything. And just sometimes you don't. So it is fair to always just kind of acknowledge like, well, I didn't know that, and move on. But most of the time they will try to attack on like the same couple things. So it's good to learn responses to the most common attacks that you might hear if you want to get into that. But I also think that it's a good technique that you don't have to defend every single person who is a conservative for everything, because there's just no way you could possibly know the entire history. So for example, you know, a lot of things that I hear a lot of times, oh, Donald Trump's a racist. Okay, how is he a racist? Like I said, 85% of the time they can't answer, they'll just go away if you push them on that. But once in a while you'll get a smart troll and they might say, oh, well, one time he took out an ad in the New York Times condemning the Central Park Five, you know, and maybe you don't know anything about that. It's fine. It's fair to not know anything about that. I could actually break it down for you that he didn't. If you actually read what he wrote, it's definitely not racist, but most people don't, and they'll just use that argument against you. So, but you could say, okay, I don't know about that, but one thing I do know is that Donald Trump has been in the limelight for many, many years. He's worked with people of all backgrounds and religions and you know, every ethnicity under the sun. And he was never called a racist until he ran against Hillary Clinton as a Republican. So I think whenever you go back and you watch any show he ever produced, there are all kinds of different people on it, and he gets along with everyone and he's worked with everyone. But again, it's still not a good argument on their front. So you can move on past that if you want to actually talk about ideas. So another thing you're going to want to learn how to do is just how to spot inconsistencies in leftist arguments. As we all know, the left's, you know, basically most of their policies and ideas are full of inconsistencies. And this is true of their entire worldview, so it's not very difficult to spot. Most leftists refuse to acknowledge their actual views are quite extreme. So they usually end up kind of arguing half-truths or variations on what they think. So I think it's a good idea to try to hold people up and see what it is that they actually believe. And it's interesting if you can get them to kind of admit that. One thing that I think is a good idea is to try to force them to answer questions and sort of stay on top of them. And if you know that you've got a point, just keep asking them the same question and don't let them get away with something, right? I've heard it said that trying to argue with a leftist is like trying to nail Jello to the wall. And I think that that's a great analogy, because they will know that they don't have anything, so they'll attack you, or attack an idea, or attack your president. He's a racist, or he's whatever. And then when you ask them how, they usually can't back it up, or they'll say, well, this is this, or this is this. And then inevitably, you've probably been in these arguments. Well, they'll bring up something completely unrelated. Well, you don't support a women's right to choose. And you're like, what are we even talking about? I thought we were talking about immigration. So it's just interesting when you see that happen. You have to not let yourself get rattled and just hold them to one point. And I'm going to show you another video right now that I did recently, where a man just wanted to debate me on, he believed that Donald Trump said that there are good people on both sides of the Charlottesville issue. And I made a video of my debate with a man on the street talking about this. So I'm going to share that with you. So let me...
Maggie, real quick, when you
Yes.
play the video, can you maximize the audio on the computer and move one of your earbuds to the video so it can pick up the sound?
Oh, well, I think that there's a way to actually share the sound. Let me do share computer sound, right?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. You know what is so funny? I had this whole thing figured out before we even came on. And then last minute we switched computers. So I went from this computer to this computer, and now it's all messed up. Okay, yes, because I definitely want you guys to be able to hear this. And please stop me if you can't, and we'll backtrack and figure it out.
Will do.
We're all learning. These are new times we are in. Oh dear, restart your audio sharing application. Oh dear, I don't know if I can actually share this. Okay, well, because I'm on this computer, I don't think it's going to let me share the audio of this video. But let me kind of tell you generally what happens. This was a great video with this guy. So yeah, I don't have the password to play this, but let me tell you what kind of happened with this guy. And I encourage you all to go check it out, because it was a very, very funny moment. So basically, this gentleman wants to tell me that Donald Trump said that there are good people on both sides of the Charlottesville issue. And I knew that this is not true. And I asked him, had he seen that full clip where he said, I'm not talking, specifically in that moment, when Donald Trump said there are good people on both sides, what he was referring to, and if you watch the full speech, it becomes very clear, that he was saying there's good people on both sides of the argument. There are good people that are, that believe that we should take down Confederate statues, and there are good people that believe in the history of America and that believe that it's important to leave these statues up. And Donald Trump was very clear, because in the very next breath he said, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis or the white supremacists. They should be condemned totally. But of course the media never played that. They just played there are good people on both sides, implying these horrible racist people that were there and the people that were protesting wanting to take down the statues. And so I debate this with this man. He kept repeating over and over and over that Donald Trump said this. And I just kept saying and repeating to him, well, no, have you seen the full video? This is what he actually said. And he said, no, he didn't say that. All he had to say was that this was bad and to condemn it. And then I actually play the clip in my video, like, no, he did say this. But of course the man just keeps repeating, and we kind of just go in a circle. But it's funny because you see how many times he tries to change the subject in this debate. But I just kept telling him, like, no, he said what basically he did condemn the violence that day, and you're basically lying. But this is what these people do. They think that they're informed because they heard a 15-second clip on CNN or MSNBC. So yeah, it's not something you want to get into with these people. So I'm really sorry I can't play the video, but I encourage you to watch it. And so basically, yeah, you want to force them to answer questions. You want to keep on them. They hate answering questions. And this is usually when they're going to come out with a personal attacks or call you names. And the reason they don't like answering questions is because it reveals holes in their logic. So you always want to make sure that it's okay to acknowledge if you don't know something, but to get back to the original point and to make sure that you do make your point. And and always it's good to know that you've got an angle and you know what to go into with someone. The fact that this guy was railing on about Charlottesville, I was like, oh, I actually know all about that. And I know the exact quote of what Donald Trump actually said. So it made it really easy for me to just keep bringing it back to that and to not let him off the hook with it. So I think it's a good idea to keep them on topic and to make them answer questions. So yeah, he tried to change the subject, blah, blah, blah. I wish I had had the video on me because I would have actually forced him to like watch it. But of course he ended up being the video. So let me see. I also want to say that with a lot of these people, you're probably never, with especially people that are radical leftists, it's very rare that you're going to win a debate with them. Most of the time, you are just probably going to get them riled up. And 99% of the time, they're going to like huff and puff and storm off and think that you're an idiot and you're, you know, this and that. And they're going to be just, you know, keep thinking in their narrow-minded way. But all it takes, and I'll just encourage everyone here, is like all it takes is one little idea to get in there, and that can unlock everything for them. I think of, I don't know if you guys have seen, my favorite interview of Mark Levin's in the last couple of years was with Brandon Straka, who is you know, formerly, well, he's gay. He used to be a hairdresser and used to be a complete rabid leftist progressive, you know, voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and actually cried the day after the election, you know, just could not go to work. He was a complete mess. And he went online for months on his Facebook, just crying about how horrible this president was and how horrible conservatives were and how could anyone support this monster. And all it took was, he says, like an old family friend of his sent him a video and said, hey, I don't want to get my head bitten off, but have you seen this? And she sent him a video that debunked one of then the most common lies about Donald Trump, talking about, you know, Donald Trump didn't make fun of that handicapped reporter. And it sort of showcased how Trump makes fun of everybody like that. And it's just something he's always done. So, you know, Brandon Straka saw that video and it unlocked something for him because he was so confused, like, wait a sec, but I believe this, but here's one little thing that made me question everything. And that one video he became obsessed with. And it started him off realizing that all the things he thought he believed and all the things that the media was telling him, he realized were not true. So sometimes, you know, take solace in the fact that you might be that one little moment for someone. And I believe this to be completely true, that most of the time, people that are arguing with you are just so cemented in their worldview because they haven't been exposed to these ideas. And I'll give you another story that was really just a powerful moment for me. I was at UC Berkeley covering a protest of Ann Coulter when she was speaking there last fall. And a young man ran up to me. He knew who I was and said, oh my gosh, I love your videos. Thank you, Midge, for what you do. And I was like, wow, at UC Berkeley, this young student knows my work. How cool. So I asked him if he was always a conservative. And he said no. He said he was raised in California and automatically just was a Democrat. That's what he was, being from California. It was automatic for him. And when Ben Shapiro came to UC Berkeley and there were all the protests and people just completely losing their mind and trashing everything, he had never even heard of Ben Shapiro. So what did he do? He went home and got on his computer and said, what does this guy stand for? And he watched one Ben Shapiro video and he said it completely changed his whole life. He watched that one video and it unlocked something for him. And he realized, like, wow, this guy's ideas make a lot of sense. Like, this is really interesting. Why is this so taboo? Because what he's saying is actually very logical. And I agree with it. Like, how is it I could agree with such a monster as Ben Shapiro? And then, of course, on YouTube, he was recommended other videos and he went down a rabbit hole. He watched a couple more Ben Shapiro videos and then he found FogCity Midge, me. He found my videos and he thought, wow, oh my gosh, well, this girl's in San Francisco. And then he said he watched every single video of mine. And it's so incredible that all it took was that one video, that one first video, sort of unlocking everything for him. So I think that even if 99% of the time these people are not going to engage or be nice, you never know if you might change somebody's entire life just by presenting them with facts and ideas that they haven't heard before. So it's amazing to me that these leftists, for how hard they are, they have no idea how to debate us because they've never really had their worldview challenged. Whereas we consume their entertainment, we watch their videos, we're taught by their teachers, we know their arguments and we know what they stand for. And it's not logic and facts and rationality. It's a lot of confused thinking that doesn't always add up. So, you know, I think it's really incredible that you can shatter someone's entire worldview with a single video. And that's why I started doing what I'm doing. Yeah, so I think if you want to know more about actually debating, I do have to recommend a book that I like. I'm not the biggest Ben Shapiro fan, even though I am grateful that his videos led people to finding my videos. But yeah, I do like Ben Shapiro, but he's just not my favorite conservative. But he does write a tremendously awesome book. It's called How to Debate Liberals and Destroy Them. So if you want to know more about how to debate people, it's a great book. You can read it in an hour. It's about 65 pages. I think it's 99 cents on Amazon. And yeah, it's just a little digital book. And he does outline some of these principles that I talked about today and how you can just sort of just know your opponent and go, especially it's that book's more for if you're going to actually like go in and debate someone in a proper debate setting, but it's really just a great book that highlights their thinking and the fallacies in their logic and how you can kind of destroy them, Ben Shapiro style. So I guess I'll kind of just leave you all with that. And I hope you learned a little bit from me today. I'm sorry that the videos did not work better, but I encourage you to at least go check out that Charlottesville video is a pretty good little debate. And if you guys have any questions, I say, let's open it up.
Yes, yes, we do. We have questions. And I totally second Maggie, and also as you guys have been seeing the comments, go watch her videos. I think Chris put one of the links, Josh put the link to that video in the chat, so feel free to copy and paste that in there. All right, we have questions, so we will go ahead and get started. First question, as a social media influencer, what is your favorite social media platform and why?
Oh dear. If you had asked me this a year ago, I probably would have told you something very different. But I really got my start on Instagram. To me, I like the visual medium. I like the fast pace of it. But when it comes to sort of going viral, it's actually not a great platform. And I think that for me now, my new favorite is Twitter. If you had asked me 6 years ago, I would never think that Twitter would be what it is. But Donald Trump really single-handedly has brought Twitter back from the verge of irrelevance as far as social media goes. And Twitter is the most powerful social media that exists to make an idea go viral. And if you have any interest in being in public office or being a writer or a speaker or anything, I think it's the best. And if you make friends with other people that have bigger accounts, all it takes is them to retweet you, and all of a sudden you're reaching millions more people than even you might only have 10 followers. And if President Trump retweets you, all of a sudden your ideas and your short little 240 character message could have a worldwide platform. And he regularly does retweet just regular Americans who support him and stand behind him. So that was an incredible moment for me when I realized, like, wow, I got retweeted by one of the videos I made was somebody tweeted and then President Trump retweeted it. So all of a sudden I'm realizing millions of people are seeing my video that I made. And that was a very powerful moment for me. And I've seen it even happen with my own tweets where all of a sudden I made this crazy video that was exposing basically these kids in San Francisco had been taken out of the classroom and brought to a protest against close the camps. AOC talking point was the name of the protest. And yeah, to see that video go so viral because of Twitter, because it was retweeted by Dinesh D'Souza, Sebastian Gorka, Sarah Carter then was writing articles about it. And all of a sudden the video just went crazy and I was getting calls from Fox News. And that was because of Twitter, not because necessarily of what happened on YouTube. Although YouTube can also be not as good of a platform, but it's good for people because then when others write articles, they can link it to your YouTube and then they can see the full video. But for short social media purposes, I think that strangely, Twitter is where it's at.
All right. President Trump saving social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well, and
know.
can I say one more thing too, just to
Yeah.
encourage all of you? I think that it is really important for conservatives to be on social media and to be active on social media. I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, I'm just going to get censored or shadow banned anyways. Why bother? But we really have to be there, and we have to fight for it. And we have to fight for it as, it really is the new town square, and it's how people communicate in this modern age. And I believe that that's something that we have to be fighting for, and that conservatives need to be active on and not to shy away from. It's incredible how you can communicate on social media, and I just encourage everyone to be active. Not everyone needs a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, XYZ, Parler, Gab, every account. But I think it's important to figure out which ones work with your personality. Like if you're more of a photo or visual person, going to Instagram, using that to the best of your ability to, meet and communicate with other conservatives and network with them and share your ideas and post and get information out there. If you're more of a writer and you can write like short, punchy stuff, definitely go Twitter. If you're more about sharing articles, a lot of Facebook is a great way to do that, and to embed links and share those with people, or to start a group on Facebook. But I just say to everyone, figure out what your medium is and stick with it and be aggressive and post there. And it can be an incredible tool to reach other people. So don't shy away.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Tens of millions of American workers have filed for unemployment in recent weeks. Several notable politicians have recently pushed for COVID relief payments for non-US citizens living here illegally. When Americans are lining up by the tens of thousands for food boxes, is this proposed legislation betraying the citizens of this country?
I think you already know the answer to that one, but yes, of course. I think it is completely ridiculous, but I think a lot of these policies are ridiculous, and we've been seeing them in California. I think most conservatives have been shocked and appalled to see the fact that, President Trump got rid of the individual mandate to penalize people for not having health care. Gavin Newsom brings that back, but then is offering free health care to illegal immigrants who, have not paid into the system and are not being penalized by this mandate. And, we see this happen in so many things where, illegal immigrants are given are handled differently than American citizens. And it's unfair, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop both in the benefits that they're able to collect, as well as, even the way that they're handled by the judicial system is often treated differently state by state than how Americans are treated. I'm friends with a couple of the Angel mom and Angel dad who both worked on the We Built the Wall project. They're both on the board of that, and I was invited to come cover it as a social media influencer and filmmaker. And yeah, they know a lot more than I do, but they've told me stories about how, basically for the same crime, an illegal immigrant they'll let them plead to a non-deportable offense. But if an American were caught drunk driving or whatever, they would actually spend time in jail. And it's a double standard, and it's unfair. And I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me, but I think it tells you everything that you need to know about the Democrat Party right now, that they prioritize criminals and illegal immigrants ahead of American citizens.
Yeah. All right, next question. What do you find is the best way to open the mind of a woke person who hates President Trump, but might actually be willing to be open-minded about voting for a conservative, just finds the president a huge hurdle? And do you have any direct experience with this kind of challenge?
Yeah, I do. Actually, one of my best friends is I would say he's a classical liberal, definitely more moderate in my opinion, but he is a self-proclaimed progressive. And it drives me bananas because he refuses to acknowledge the fact that progressive is actually further left than, what I believe he really is. So I find that with people like that, who are willing to have a conversation, who might be open to even voting for a conservative, is to find places where you can agree. And I think that's always a good lead in. Like if they say, hey, I believe in immigration reform, you can say, so do I. Let's talk about what that might look like, because we might have different definitions of that, but I can agree with that. My progressive, not progressive friend, what did he say to me recently? I challenged him. I said, find something that we disagree on. tell me something that you think we disagree on, and let's talk about it. And he said, well, I believe that welfare should exist. And I said, okay, so do I. And he goes, oh, I just thought you would not even want that at all. And I was like, no, I don't have a problem with the existence of welfare. I just don't believe that people should, live their lives dependent upon it. And I don't believe that the government should enable and encourage people and create situations where they get more money if, if they stay on it, or they have more children, or they, then there's just like these opportunities to never get out of a cycle of poverty. Especially what they've done in a lot of inner city communities where they, encourage fatherless homes to get more money and this kind of thing. So he was like, wow, well, I agree with all that. I can agree with that. And so all of a sudden now we've found common ground. And I think when it comes to President Trump, a lot of people have just been so brainwashed to hate this man from day one because of all the things about him. But I think the way to kind of reach across the aisle would be, you have to present the accomplishments. And it's a little bit hard right now. I was actually working on this incredible video series where we like highlight the most amazing time in to be an American and the accomplishments of President Trump. And I was so excited to make this video, and then this happened. And now we're in this bizarro land where everything is shut down, and we are sacrificing our economy and our country and our liberties at the altar of this idea of public health that is so vague and ever changing. But I think one thing you can come back to is like values. It's hard to nail on the accomplishments given like the state of things at this moment. But I think another way I try to debate with people who are sensible is to talk about the parties as like a gift basket. So if you have, if Democrats a gift basket and Republicans are a gift basket, like you're not going to like everything in your gift basket if you only get two. Like this one has more chocolate in it, but this one's got like way more savory snacks, and you like savory snacks. So think about it like a gift basket. And to me, the gift basket that I definitely don't want is the one that encourages high taxes, illegal immigrants before Americans, high crime, keeping people poor and dependent upon the government, keeping people down, less liberty, less freedoms. I want the party that supports, more freedom, more prosperity, stronger families, stronger communities, safer, closed borders, a safer country, people coming here the right way, these kind of ideas. So I think it's coming at them. Maybe try some of those ideas with them, and good luck.
Definitely. All right, next question, and two-part question. The first part, after we answer it, there'll be a second follow-on. So what do you think about many celebrities and politicians downplaying or even delegitimizing Biden's sexual assault accuser, while saying just in the last few years, all women should believe about sexual assault?
Yeah, that I find that to be such an infuriating subject, but it just goes to highlight their hypocrisy, right? And I think it's actually kind of a good thing, because you realize just what frauds these people are. And I was very much I was not a supporter of the Me Too movement, because I saw through it from the beginning that this was a way for people who were irrelevant to come back into relevancy. Because if I believe that many of the prominent voices in that movement were basically exploiting their association to certain big people in Hollywood to try to get their name out there again. It was not about, doing the right thing and protecting other women from assault, because otherwise they would have come out years ago. But it's very easy to come out and to stand up for the right thing when your career is irrelevant. It's much harder to do, what I've had to do and come out and speak my truth when, you have more on the line to lose. So, that's my feelings just about those ladies. But to talk about specifically Joe Biden and Tara Reid, it is so pathetic when you see that. I think they did the coverage on this last week, but when you go to CNN and you can type in like subjects and you can type in Tara Reid, and there are 0 articles written with the name Tara Reid in it. But if you type in Christine Blasey Ford, there's close to 700 articles on CNN. So it just goes to show you that if Joe Biden were a Republican, that I guarantee there would be many, many interviews with Tara Reid. But because he is the Democratic nominee, they get to ignore it. And I find it sickening, to be completely honest.
Yeah. So then follow up on Joe Biden. Who do you think he'll choose as his VP? And do you think that he has a medical issue that leaves him unqualified to be president?
Yeah, I mean, I think most Democrats are unqualified to be president, in my opinion. But whether he has a medical issue, I mean, certainly we've all seen the signs of you know, just aging and senility, and there's definitely something wrong with that guy. I don't say that to be mean or glib, but I think that it's just a reality, and it's very sick that that he's being propped up in this way. And yeah, I actually was here working as a producer a couple days ago, and I was producing a podcast for my friend who was interviewing Dave Rubin, and I told him, you need to ask Dave Rubin if he's who he's voting for, and he would not answer. But he got into this whole side thing about how, oh, you know, people aren't really going to be voting for Joe Biden. They're going to be voting for his VP because they know that he's not well enough to make it. And I'm thinking, this is so crazy. And now a bunch of Democrats are saying, oh, well, you know, pick your VP soon so you can use that person to campaign with and fundraise and all these things and get kind of back out in the limelight. But I mean, I don't think he should choose someone right away, because it's probably, I think Joe Biden's does better when he's not in the limelight, because every time he has to speak, it's kind of an embarrassment, and people see through him. Who do I think he'll actually pick? I mean, who? It's so weird. I don't really know. He says he's going to choose a woman, person of color, all these arbitrary things that aren't really important. When he should be just choosing the best person for the job. Honestly, I could not tell you. If you had asked me a year ago who was going to be the nominee, I would have told you Kamala Harris. I would say there's no way Joe Biden will ever be the Democrat nominee, given the fact that they can't stand guys like that. And here he is. So we're living in bizarro world. So I don't know. I could tell you someone and guaranteed it's I have no idea.
Yeah. Yep. 3 more questions. All right. What do you think about Laura Loomer and about censorship of conservatives, and how careful are you with your platform?
Great question. I love Laura Loomer. It's very funny. She, I was told early on by establishment conservatives that there are certain people that you should affiliate with and certain people you should not affiliate with. And she has been blacklisted by Fox. She cannot go on mainstream conservative outlets and speak up anymore. They won't book her. She's seen as a radical, this and that. And this was all before she even got banned from social media. And yet I became friendly with her, and she organized a protest that I participated in Sacramento. And I thought, this young woman is really smart. She's a little odd. She's very intense, but she is probably the smartest conservative, activist I've met. And one thing that really struck me about her was her drive, her commitment to her beliefs. Nothing that she believes is extreme, but the thing is that she says things that other people aren't willing to say. She will speak truths that people don't like to point out. A lot of them have to do with Islam, and I can tell you that on my own social media accounts, I know that is a buzzword that if you use it, you are very likely to be banned. So there are certain things that I choose as my projects, both things that I know more about, that I am comfortable criticizing. But yeah, that's like a topic that I don't really touch, in part because of social media, and knowing that if it were to completely delete my presence from all social media just for using that word or criticizing Islam or just questioning, that it could completely bring down your whole account. And I'm talking about, you can criticize just the ideas, right? And that people don't even like to talk about the facts that worldwide, there was a Pew Research study that said 70% of Muslims worldwide support Sharia law. And that's a fact that's overwhelming and is kind of crazy to consider. And even just by saying that fact on social media is enough to get you banned from Twitter. So all of a sudden you don't have your worldwide platform because you say something like that. to me, it's not the biggest cause that I stand behind. So I don't feel weird about not posting about, criticizing Islam the way Laura Loomer has. But I will say that was one of the large reasons why she was banned. Um, and I think that again, that kind of goes back to the idea of First Amendment rights and what you can and just being active on social media and the importance of it. And here's the irony about Laura Loomer, and just let me bring this full circle, is for someone who was so blacklisted and you couldn't talk, you couldn't make videos with her, and she, you shouldn't affiliate too much or post photos with her online, and all these things, and all the stuff that everybody gossips about in the conservative, think tanks. Laura Loomer has now come back, and she's like this fighter that cannot be stopped. And this is what I think that all conservatives should do if you are banned or if anyone tries to silence you, is to not stop and to keep pushing and leveraging. And Laura Loomer had such a loyal following, and she was so smart about getting everybody's contact info, that even though she was banned from all social media, she then was still able to run for Congress, which she's running for Congress now, has outraised everyone else in her race, and has raised money from all 50 states and is doing superbly. And not only that, but I ran into her at Mar-a-Lago recently, and she is now back in every single circle. She cannot be ignored, and she is a force to be reckoned with. And it's funny because you can dislike her personally. A lot of conservatives do. They don't like her tactics because they're very leftist tactics. She goes up and she, interrupted a stage play and ran on stage, and they were depicting the killing of President Trump, and she stopped the play. That's a very leftist activist-y thing to do, to protest and to interrupt, and to go and do something outlandish and get herself arrested. But I think that, to me, I want to see more passionately activist people on the right who are not afraid to make their voices heard, at even if it requires her shouting to make sure that her point is heard. And she's a bulldog. So to me, I want a bulldog in Congress. I want someone that is just as loud as AOC, so that when AOC is running her mouth, that you've got someone who's just as loud and who also has facts and logic and great, conservative values on their side. So to me, I like Laura Loomer personally.
There you go. All right. This one, I'm going to read it exactly the way it's written because I think you would appreciate it. First of all, I love you, Maggie. I'm totally fangirling. What are your thoughts on Israel?
I love Israel. Well, and thanks for the fangirl. I love that. It's funny. I love Israel. I guess that makes me a Zionist because I believe that Israel has a right to exist as a country. I've been to Israel twice. I believe that they're one of our strongest allies. Given the topic tonight, I can tell you personally how I've had to defend my position, because I'm a very much America first, Trump MAGA conservative. And a lot of people, there are racists across the spectrum, and there are people that are anti-Semitic across the spectrum, and there is a fringe group of anti-Semitic people on the right, and they will say, oh, you can't be America first and support our Israel. But it's funny because you can kind of dissect these people's arguments, because they always attack Israel. They don't say, oh, well, you can't be America first and support our other allies. It's always just about Israel. So if you ask them, well, would you say this exact thing about all these other countries that we also give aid to, or that we partner with militarily? They always kind of back down, because for them, it's because they're anti-Israel. And the other thing is a lot of people who want to criticize the fact that our government supports that we give money to Israel. And in large part, it's because there's deals that they have where they buy back our weapons. And so it's kind of like a back and forth thing, but they're our strongest ally in the Middle East. They are, a beacon of light and hope in a very dark corner of the world. And God bless them. For people that have been to Israel, it's an incredible and strange country where you've got all of this history and all of these different people and religions living in very in a kind of amazing harmony, considering the animosity that exists between certain groups. So it's really an incredible place. And the world would be a much worse place without Israel. So I think that's always like, you kind of have to just look at the big picture. Yeah, so that's my feelings on Israel. I love it. It's a beautiful place. I'm a Christian, so it's the Holy Land. I highly recommend people visit.
There you go. There you go. And then the last question, we had a last question submission here, but we've already have another last question that was, what do you think about climate change?
Oh, personally, look, I'm not a scientist, but I even think some of these climate change scientists aren't totally scientists. But personally, I think that I feel this way about a lot of leftist policies is when debating it, you could even concede like maybe this, okay, let's concede that it exists. To what extent is America responsible to correct the levels of CO2 in the world, right? Like, what are we expected to do and to what cost? So we could reduce our carbon emissions 100%, like 100%. We basically are right now, right? People aren't driving. We're not manufacturing anything. We're not doing anything. We could shut it all down and it still would make less than a fraction of a difference on the worldwide scale. Mm-hmm. So if we were to do all that, even at the cost of trillions of dollars to our economy and our people and our future, it doesn't stop China and India and the Philippines and other countries from continuing to manufacture. And if anything, I think it would actually make the world a far worse place, because who would then be producing everything that we would become dependent upon would be these other countries that are far less clean and green than America is. And if anything, I think that globally it would create more carbon, because all of a sudden now we have to transport all of these new goods that we have to now import and become more dependent upon other countries and who are making them in a far less green way. So to me, I don't know 100% of the science, but I do know that what the left is pushing for to try to push for the Green New Deal and take over our entire economy, that is yet it's a power grab from the left of what they really want, which is more centralized government, socialism, greater control over every single aspect of our lives. It's not really about the environment.
Yeah. And then I will make room for the very, very last question that was posed, the last part. Do you think there's hope for California?
Oh, golly, you guys are not gonna, I know. Well, yes and no, let me not be horrible, but people ask me this a lot, like, let's flip this state red, let's do this. I am very concerned about California, and I don't have a lot of confidence in the near future. I think it is going to be a very long haul attempt to get the state back on track, but it's not. Look, we do have a lot of conservatives here, and every single conservative needs to show up to vote every single time, because now, as we've seen with what they've done from ballot harvesting to just illegals voting and people voting multiple times, they are cheating. And, it's the reason why we lost seats. Ballot harvesting is the main reason that we lost seats in Orange County. And, the Democrats have a super majority in the state Senate, in, up and down public offices across the state. And it's a cancer on this state. And the problem is that it then bleeds into other states, because the more they ruin California, people then move to these other states, and then stupidly they continue to vote for the same socialists and socialist policies that destroyed this state in the first place. I see this happening in Texas and talk to people all the time about it. But my hope for California doesn't lie in the next election or electing like the next conservative mayor. My friend's running for mayor in Pasadena, and I hope he gets elected. But, it's like we have to be working on all of the things that we can work on. But I think that long term, it's about changing people's hearts and minds and waking them up, because the problem is that we can get out in the biggest numbers possible. But if we have so many young people coming just down the pipeline, coming through schools that are being completely indoctrinated as young as kindergarten, and that are being so brainwashed with these progressive socialist racist ideologies that it's so ingrained in them that Republicans are evil. I don't have a ton of confidence in that, more than like I just think that it's going to be at least a whole generation of teaching people the truth about conservative politics and policies before we get to that point of saving the state. So to me, no, it's like a 20, 30-year long play to get it back. I don't think it can't be done. And short of that, I think it would just take a massive awakening. And that's going to have to start with, people's hearts and minds. So for more on that, if you haven't seen my video about the kids protesting in San Francisco, that will make you sick to your stomach. And I mean, it's hard to believe what they are actually teaching kids in our public schools with your tax dollars. They are indoctrinating young children, and it is, it's sick.
All right. Well, Maggie.
On that happy note, sorry, we didn't end on a better question. But yeah, I mean, I do hope that everybody takes this though, and continues to fight and continues to reelect Donald Trump, because to me, we've got the greatest fighter that we've ever had, like on the Republican side. Maybe Abe Lincoln was a tougher guy, but I don't think so. I think that Donald Trump is the greatest fighter that we have, and we ought to stand behind him and to make sure that we elect a conservative Congress. Again, California is a tough bet. I hope we can flip back some of these seats red, and it means every single person has to be fighting and posting and sharing and emailing every single conservative that they know, and just making sure that every single person gets out to vote in every election, and voting in person, not voting by mail.
Yeah. All right. Well, Maggie, thank you so much for being here with us.